So this is a game between Nimzovich as white and Rubinstein as black. And it's white to move. And the cool thing about this position is there's nothing immediate. We're looking for a move that is a long-term strategic play. The only thing that jumps out at me right away is this white bishop, the light squared bishop, hitting g8, the square next to the black king. So how can the black king escape, right? It would have like h6, king h7 or something. So this bishop seems like an important piece. But none of white's other pieces are really doing that much. The queen is attacking the center a little bit with d5. This dark squared bishop on the white side is just not really doing much of anything. And I could see an argument for doubling up the rooks here on this e file, or shoving the h pawn, like an attack trying to get to h6. But the real question is, what square do we want any of our pieces? Like, what is the best square for which of our pieces? And I think I immediately jump to the knight. Because what would be a good square for this knight? Well, f7 would be okay, but then the rook would just take it. e6 would be trading it off to the bishop. But that would fork the queen and rook if then I got to e6. So where else could we put the knight? E5 is okay, but G5 seems really good because it's hitting H7, it's threatening to come to F7 and E6. It's just a good square. We can play queen over to H5 here, hitting H7 for checkmate. So we want to get our knight to G5. So the right move in this position is actually knight back to H1. And then the idea is f2, h3, g5 for the knight. And we could look at the whole game, but I think more importantly to see that the knight actually does get there, and then it turns into an endgame where we're up a minor piece. But it's just so interesting to me that in this position, you know, he does double up the rooks, and he does trade off a lot of pieces, but the key idea is, how do we resituate that knight? And I think this is kind of like life sometimes. It's, you have a situation where there's nothing immediate to do. Like, long term is where you should be focusing, but you can't do anything in the long term. You can just do things moment after moment after moment. So you have to keep the long term in mind and do something in the moment that seems like you're going backwards, in fact. But in reality, you're like moving exactly where you're supposed to be moving. It's just going to take an extra step. Examples, just off the top of my head, maybe something with school. Like, you're not really interested in a certain type of class, but you need it for a requirement. And if you don't take it now, you're not going to be able to graduate later. It's going to really bite you when you are a senior and you need to be taking all your graduate classes, your upper level classes, but all your graduation classes, but you never took that one class that you needed to take, and therefore you cannot get into all the classes you need to get into. This knight h1 move is just, it looks kind of ridiculous, you know? We're just hopping all over the board, but I think that's a good way to think about chess, is moving backwards to move forwards. And that obviously can be applied to life too. So that's just a cool position that I would never think it myself. I think if I had this position, I'd probably play h4 and h5 and h6 and try to infiltrate the dark squares. But Nimzovich had other ideas. So very cool. Thanks for watching.